creating Stoke's best 11 since their first season in the Premier League. Starting off with goalkeeper, I'm going to say Stoke were quite blessed in the Premier League with decent goalkeepers. And we're blessed with a decent goalkeeper now with Victor Johansson. But my top three would be Thomas Sorensen as number 3, strictly because of how important he was for when Stoke got promoted. For the first 2 or 3 seasons, he was vital to keeping us in the Premier League, and he was an incredible penalty shot stopper. Number 2, I've got Jack Butland. I think for 2 seasons especially, he was probably the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. But then I think since that injury, he all of a sudden forgot how to be a goalkeeper and was one of him and Charlie Adam and Jesse Rodriguez were probably the main reasons why we got relegated to the Championship due to errors. And number 1 is Asmir Begovic. Incredible. He got his big move to Chelsea. I think he even went to AC Milan at some point. Still going now as well, playing for Leicester. Yeah, he's my number 1 choice. No need to say much more. He was incredible, Asmir Begovic. Moving on to the right-back position, a position where Stoke haven't really been blessed. The same with left-back. There's only really 2 players that stand out for me, and one of them is Andy Wilkinson. Obviously, he was known for being an absolute nutcase, hard as nails, and there's that famous picture out there of him and Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm not going to say he wasn't that good at football either. He was just an incredible defender. Just he wore the badge next to his heart, and he played with passion. But he's my number 2. I've only got 2 in this because I really struggled who to have. But my number 1 is Glenn Johnson. I think it ended a bit sour for Glenn Johnson and especially in that last season in the Premier League. But throughout, he was a very good right back. He's had a very good career as well in the Premier League. But I think he had 2 or 3 seasons with Stoke, and he's just a really good footballer in general. You could even throw Jeff Cameron into the mix, but Jeff Cameron's played buddy all over the pitch. He's a bit like our now boss and Lowell. But for my number 1 at right back, it is Glenn Johnson. Moving on to the other fullback position, another one that we haven't really been blessed with. Again, I've only got 2 players, and that one of them is Danny Higginbottom. You could argue he was a centre half because he played centre half for Stoke in the Championship and then got promoted. And he moved to left back, but because we got promoted with Tony Pulis, our right backs and left backs were mainly centre halves anyway, like your Danny Collins and your Mark Wilsons all played full back. Danny Higginbottom, my memory for him is that free kick against West Ham. I think it was in the quarter-final of the FA Cup year when we got to the final. He scored a free kick to get us to the semis. But overall, I think the obvious option for left back is Eric Peters. His longevity, bog standard. I think we tried to replace him a few times, but he just got better and fought for his place again. But he was just a bog standard left back. He wasn't nothing special. He wasn't nothing bad. He was there to do the job, and he linked up with Arnautovic pretty well. Moving on to the centre halves, I think right themselves, especially for I think it was about 4 or 5 years they played together in the Premier League, got us to the FA Cup final, played in Europe together. Yes, that is Robert Tooth and Ryan Shawcross. Names to be mentioned. You've got Bruno Martins Indy. He played when we sold. I think he was a replacement for Robert Tooth when we sold him to Leicester, and then Robert Tooth went on to win the Premier League. So special mentions to Martins Indy, Mark Muniesa. Again, you can go further down and look at Danny Collins and Mark Wilson. The players did the job. Jeff Cameron, again, could play centre half as well. So yeah, but my main 2 centre halves were Robert Tooth and Ryan Shawcross. Moving on to the 2 midfielders, I've got 4 written down, but there is loads more you could say. Again, Jeff Cameron, I'm chucking him in every position because he did jobs there. Marco Van Ginkel is another one. But my top 4, we've got Charlie Adam, Joe Allen, Stephen Nzonzi and Glenn Whelan. But the 2 I am going with was Glenn Whelan and Stephen Nzonzi. When we sold Stephen Nzonzi, we tried to replace him multiple times. Obviously, he's back now, but he's a granddad, so it doesn't really count. But when we sold him, I think we sold him to, was it Sevilla or Roma? I can't quite remember. Never replaced him. We tried replacing him with Mbula, didn't work. Tried to replace him multiple times. Never had a player like Nzonzi again. The same with Glenn Whelan. Not unreplaceable. I think Pulis said in one of his podcasts he's done with a few people that he tried to replace Glenn Whelan multiple times, but he just fought his way back into the team. Same with Enzonzi. When he's missing from the side, you know he's missing. You're struggling that midfield, and he was just. It's a bit like Joe Allen. Joe Allen just bit you. You know, he was like that dog in midfield, workhorses. So yeah, my two midfielders are Glenn Whelan and Stephen Enzonzi. On the left midfield, I have got two names. Matty Everington, of course. I don't need to say much about Matty Everington. We signed him as soon as I think it was a season after we got promoted, or in the January of the first season. I can't quite remember, but it was around that time. Was with us for I think it was 5 or 6 seasons. Got us into Europe, got us to an FA Cup final. Was really good for Stoke, but my number one choice is of course Marko Arnautovic. Don't need to say much about him. Probably one of the best players to play for Stoke City in my lifetime. Moving on to the other wing, I've got 3 names written down, but obviously one can make it, and it's going to be obvious who it is. But I'm going to start off with Jermaine Pennant, the same reason as Matty Everington. He signed for Stoke a similar time. I think it might have been a season after we signed Matty Everington, but it was one of the main reasons we got to the FA Cup final again, European football. I think he was with us for 2 or 3 years. I even think he got dropped at some point towards the end of his career for Ryan Shotton. So it says it all. My second choice would be John Walters. Obviously, we know him now as our sporting director of Stoke. He's made some questionable decisions in the past, but seems to be redeeming himself of some way anyway. But I see these two people as 2 different people. You've got the footballer John Walters and you've got the director John Walters. Completely 2 different people. One has hair for a start. When he played for Stoke, he was an absolute skinhead and hard as nails. So he's my second choice. But of course, my number one choice is Xherdan Shaqiri. The same reason as Marko Arnautovic. He's one of the best players to ever play for Stoke City in my lifetime. So, and I remember signing Xherdan Shaqiri, and it was like, when we signed him, it was like, wow. We are signing this player. We knew him from Inter Milan. We knew him from Bayern Munich. And when we signed him for 12 million, yeah, it was dreamland. So yeah, he's my right winger. In the number 10 role, again, writes itself for the same reason as Arnautovic and Shaqiri. Suffered a massive injury earlier on in his Stoke career, but it's Bojan, one of my favourite all-time players for Stoke City. And again, the same reason as them two. The fact in my lifetime I've seen Arnautovic, Bojan and Shaqiri together in a Stoke shirt, beating teams like Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, seeing them down at the Bet365 Stadium was probably that will never be beaten in my lifetime. And if it does, they're going to take some special players to do that. Now, moving on to a position we've never really been blessed with. We've never been blessed with a goal scorer. That is a striker. I've got 3 on my list, but I could name... Actually, I can't name many. We've never really been blessed with many strikers. But the 3 I've named are Mama Biram Diouf as my number 3, Ricardo Fuller as my number 2, and Peter Crouch as my number 1. Crouchy says it all. He was with us for a very long time. Fuller was massive in our promotion season. Got us promoted with his goals. Kept us up with his goals. Same with Mama Sidibe as well. And Mama Biram Diouf was there for the longevity as well. Nipped in with goals, but he wasn't very consistent. But Crouchy, you knew what you were getting with Crouchy. I think he's our all-time Premier League top goal scorer as well, if I remember that right. So yeah, running over it again, I've got Asmir Begovic in goal. I've got Glenn Johnson at right back with Eric Peters at left back, Ryan Shawcross and Robert Tooth as the centre backs. Glenn Whelan, Enzonzi and Bojan in the midfield. Left wing, Marko Arnautovic. Right wing, Xherdan Shaqiri. And up front, I have got Peter Crouch. Stoke fans, let me know who you would have instead. I know there's a lot of players I've missed out, so you could argue Joe Allen should be in there, Charlie Adam should be in there. Do you have Ricardo Fuller over Crouchy, which is probably one of the main ones? Do you have Jack Butland over Begovic? Stoke fans, let me know.